All right, today we're going to pull back the curtain on something you use all the time but probably don't think much about. It's one of the most powerful tools your brain has, the analogy. We're going to deconstruct the very architecture of how your mind builds these incredible bridges to understanding.
I mean, really think about it. You use them every single day. You say a tough day was like a battle, right? Or that a new idea needs time to germinate. It's just part of how we talk. But if you ever stopped and wondered, what is actually going on inside your head when you make those connections? How does your brain do that?
Okay, take this classic line from Shakespeare. All the world's a stage. Now, when you hear that, you don't get confused. You're not picturing literal actors, right? No, you instantly get the deeper meaning about life, our roles, destiny, the whole shebang. So what's the magic trick here? What's going on in the background that makes that connection so incredibly fast and so powerful?
So let's start with the power of like. And this is about way more than just a figure of speech. To get to the bottom of this, we've got to understand what an analogy is at its core. Because it turns out, it's not just some fancy tool for poets, it's fundamental to how we all think.
Here's the key thing to get. Analogies are basically the brain's ultimate shortcut. It's not just decoration, it's a powerful cognitive tool. It lets us grab something we know inside and out and use it like a blueprint to make sense of something completely new and unknown. I mean, this is literally how we learn, how we innovate, and how we navigate our complex world every single day.
Okay, so how does this mental bridge building actually work? Let's get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to deconstruct this whole process step by step and really see the architecture behind the magic.
So, at its heart, an analogy is a cognitive process of building what you can think of as a mental bridge. Imagine you're on an island of stuff you already know and you're totally comfortable with. The analogy is the bridge you build from that island to a brand new, unexplored territory. It's what lets you travel over there safely and start to map out the unknown. And every single one of these bridges has two ends. On one side, you have the source domain. This is your home base, what you already know. It's familiar, it's concrete, something like our solar system. And on the other end, you have the target domain. That's where you're going, the new, abstract, or maybe really complex thing you're trying to understand, like, say, an atom.
And your brain does all of this in a flash. It's basically a four-step process. First, it finds that source, that thing you know. Then, and this is the really crucial part, it doesn't just look at the surface stuff. It pulls out the core relationships, the underlying structure of how that source works. Then it takes that entire structure and maps it onto the new target. And boom, that's where the new insight, that aha moment, comes from.
This also explains why some analogies are, brilliant and others just fall flat. There's a huge difference between a deep and a shallow analogy. A shallow one is like saying, the sun is like an orange. Okay, yeah, they're both round and kind of orangey, but that doesn't really teach you anything deep, does it? A deep analogy, on the other hand, is a game changer. Like saying, the flow of electricity is like the flow of water. That works because it maps the whole system of relationships. Voltage acts like water pressure, current acts like the flow rate, resistance is like the width of the pipe. See? That's what creates real, genuine understanding.
All right, let's see this brilliant mapping process in action. We're going to look at a classic scientific example, an analogy that was so powerful it literally reshaped our entire understanding of reality.
So, back in the early 20th century, Ernest Rutherford came up with this. An atom is like a solar system. You have to remember, back then the atom was a complete and total black box, a mystery. This one simple statement gave scientists and everybody else a powerful mental model. It was a way to finally see the invisible.
And here you can see that deep structural mapping perfectly. Look, Rutherford wasn't saying the sun is literally a nucleus, of course not. What he was doing was mapping the entire system of relationships. The idea of a massive thing in the center, that's the sun, and it maps to the nucleus. The idea of smaller things orbiting that center, those are the planets, and they map to electrons. The idea of a powerful force holding it all together, that's gravity, and it maps to the electrostatic force. It's the whole structure that gets transferred, and that is what creates the breakthrough. That's what unlocks the insight. Okay, so we know what analogies are, and we've seen how they work under the hood. But let's get to the bottom line, right? Why does any of this matter? Why is getting good at this so incredibly important out there in the real world?
Well, for starters, it's the absolute engine of learning. It's how a good teacher connects a new, scary concept to something you already get. It's also vital for scientific discovery. I mean, think about Einstein's thought experiments. They were all analogies. It's at the very heart of persuasion, too. It makes a really complex argument suddenly feel simple and intuitive. And maybe most importantly, it's a huge driver of creativity. It lets us smash ideas together from totally different worlds to create something brand new.
And this, right here, is maybe the most important takeaway of all. An analogy isn't just a neat trick for explaining ideas to other people. It's actually how we form those ideas in our own minds in the first place. So by understanding how analogies work, you're not just learning a communication skill, you're getting a look at the very architecture of thought itself.
So, I'll leave you with this thought. The next time you're stuck on a really complex problem, or you're trying to wrap your head around a totally new idea, don't just stare at it and get frustrated. Ask yourself a different question. Ask, what is this like? What bridge can I build from what I already know to get there? Because that's the real challenge, isn't it? What unknown territory will your next analogy unlock?